Hello Clever Pickles, welcome to today's handwriting lesson. We are continuing with learning about our exit flicks in letters as we prepare for cursive handwriting. Today we are going to be looking at the letter M and the letter N. These two are very, very similar, but it can get confusing. So let's do some warm-ups first. I'm going to write the long date today, and you need to check what the long date is for you if that's how you're starting. And for me, it is Wednesday. Always an interesting day to write. If you're like me, sometimes you still say Wednesday. Now in my date, I am trying to use tails and other letters. This is just part of my practice, and it's okay if I do it incorrectly. This is just my practice. My numbers need to go to the top dotted line like a capital would, and I need to make sure that I'm crossing my T for 13th. It is May, and it doesn't matter if this is a different day or month for you, you just practice. I'm making sure that my capital comes up to the top dotted line here, and that my tail comes down here to the bottom dotted line. The year 2020 are numbers. That means that they need to go to that top dotted line. Okay, let's start today with the letter N, as in N for nasty. We need to do a straight line and then bump it over, and it all happens in these main two lines here in the body section. We're not going above it and we're not going below it. So let's try that. Straight line, bump it over with a little tail. Easy. Let's leave a finger space and try another one. Straight line down, bump it over with a little tail. Ooh, that one was a little bit messy and not my best work there. I'm going to put a cross on that because I know I can do better, and I'm going to move on to my next one. We only need to do 6 of these, so let's try that again. Straight line down, bump it over, curve my tail. Excellent, I'm much happier with that one. Let's have a look at what would happen if I did it too small. That could end up looking like a V if I'm not careful. Same thing would happen if it's too big. It will end up looking like another letter and possibly crossing over into a tail or a dot, and then it'll confuse my writing. So let's try another one. I need to take a breath, make sure I'm holding my pencil or my pen properly, and start at this top straight line, straight down, bump it over with a little tail. The tail does not need to be too big, so let's have a look at that. Straight line down and off I go. Too big, that could be a W if I'm not thinking carefully. So I'm going to cross that, but that's my 6 N's there. So now let's move on to the letter M. M for mum, for mother. It was Mother's Day recently. So again, M goes in between those two straight lines. It belongs in the body section, and it's very similar to the N, except we have 2 bumps now instead of just the 1. So let's do our straight line down, bump, bump with a tail on the second. So we're doing that first bump, and it's a straight line down here, and then at the end of it we have our small flick. The flick should not be bigger than sort of halfway in this space. That's where it should stop. You need to have that imaginary halfway line in your head. So finger space, let's move on to the next one. Straight line down, first bump, second bump with a flick. Excellent, let's do that again. Finger space, straight line down, first bump, second bump with a flick. Now, if you're very clever, what you're doing is making sure that these sections here that have the bumps are about the same size. I'll show you what it looks like when they're not. I'll do my first one and then my second one. These are definitely not the same size, and that's when it'll end up looking like a different letter or possibly not being able to read it at all. I've done 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do my 5th. Straight line down, first bump, second bump with a flick. Let's try my last one. Straight line down, first bump, second bump with a flick. Excellent. Now we're going to get a bit crazy. We're going to try and put these together because there are many words in our language where you will have N right next to M, or even M right next to N, depending on the order they go in. For example, the word column in column graph is MN. Any kind of word where you say non or un in front of it, you will end up having N and then M, depending on the word. So let's have a look at what it looks like when we go N and join it to M. So I will do one first. N with my tail that goes straight up to the straight line for my bump, bump, M. Now the trick here is about the space that this N takes up is almost similar to what the space is there that M would take up, that distance, which is why the gap here is a bit bigger than those two gaps there. And that's part of the spacing practice that you're doing by using these lines. So let's leave a finger space and try it again. Straight line down for my N, which flicks up into the beginning of my M with two bumps and a flick. I'll talk you through that again. Feel free to watch and then try it yourself, and you can pause the video and try it and then press play again. Straight line down and bump for the N, which flicks up into the beginning of the M, bump, bump with a flick. Let's try again. Straight line down, bump, flick up into the M, bump, bump with a tail. I think I've got room for one more. Let's try one more. Straight line down for my N, finish, and the flick goes up into the M, bump, bump with a tail. Excellent. Now let's have a look at what it looks like when we go M first. And I'm going to try and keep them in the same space here so that you can see they still take up the same amount of room. So starting with my M, I'm doing two bumps. Straight line down, one, two bumps, and then straight up into my N with one bump and a flick. See that? Very similar. And you can see where it joins are here in that curve there in that little space that's there. So let's try it again. Leave a finger space. Doing the M first, remember, straight line down, two bumps with a flick up to the start of the N with one bump and a flick. Finger space, straight line, bump, bump, flick up into the N, straight line, bump, another flick. Excellent. Try it again. Bump, bump, up into the next one. I'm going to show you what it looks like when we get a bit carried away. We always end up with too many of those bumps. Okay, make sure you practice this in some of your normal workbooks and check that your size and your shape are all matching with your letters, even though you might be doing it in a different workbook. And I will see you in the next lesson. Thanks, guys. Bye.